my albums, struck it. I saw all the headlines, heard all the talk, caught all the celebrations of my failures, which has only made my success in the television field even sweeter. It's also what finally spurred me to write this book. I need people to understand that there is no such thing as making it, that no matter how much money you stack, fame you achieve, or success you taste, there are going to be more struggles in your future, more drama to deal with, more obstacles placed in your path. The goal is not just to be successful. It's about learning how to sustain that success too. A skill I had to learn the hard way, and one I'm going to teach you in this book. Today, I'm 44 years old, an age I once thought I'd never come close to reaching. Hell, just making it to 21 seemed like it might be too much to ask at one point. Yet here I am in my fifth decade, with a few grays peeking through my beard, still got a six-pack and strong hairline though, but I'm comfortable where I'm at. It's a more mature age, one that allows me to look at my life and accurately assess what's made me who I am. And when I try to sum up my ability to keep finding ways to stay on top, I can see it comes down to two main characteristics. I've got the heart of a hustler, and I'm fearless. My primary goal for this book is to help you develop the same characteristics. But before we get into how, I want to talk about those words, fearless and hustler. Coming from me, those words probably make you think of 50 Cent, the gangster, the guy who openly bragged about selling drugs, who got shot 9 times and didn't seem to mind, who got into beefs with some of the most feared names on the street and in hip-hop and never once backed down. Those exploits all belong to 50 Cent, a persona I adopted in order to help deal with the chaos and insanity that I saw all around me growing up. But this book isn't designed to turn you into the next 50 Cent. Don't get it twisted. 50 Cent was, and still is, a real part of who I am. But if that persona was all it was to me, I never would have been able to maintain the success I've achieved. That's why in this book, I'm going to share the thinking of both 50 Cent and Curtis Jackson. I didn't start going by 50 Cent till I was older, but ever since I was a kid, I've always felt there were two sides to me, two identities I had to be comfortable with. The side that allowed me to exist in my grandmother's home, where cussing wasn't tolerated and Sundays were for church, and the side that allowed me to survive on the streets. I needed both of those sides to get by. There were times when I would actually wonder if there was something off about me. Did everyone else have that sense of duality inside of them? Was I slightly off in the head? Today I can see that there was nothing off about it, just the opposite. My ability to harness both personalities has been one of my greatest strengths. 50 Cent propelled me to the top. Curtis Jackson is the man who's been able to keep me there. At this point, I've been moving in corporate America longer than I was hustling. I was only making dirty money from the age of 12 to 24. I've been earning legal corporate cash from 25 to 44. That's almost twice as long. Not surprisingly, at this point, the streets in the business world often don't seem that different to me. Neither play fair. Both are ultra competitive. They're both ruthless, and you can still dominate each one if you follow several basic principles. Be fearless. Most people run from what they're afraid of. I run towards it. That doesn't mean I think I'm bulletproof. I've learned that I'm not, or that I'm unaware of danger. I experience fear as much as the next man. But one of the greatest mistakes people can make is becoming comfortable with their fears. Whatever's worrying me, I meet it head on and engage it until the situation is resolved. My refusal to become comfortable with fear gives me an advantage in almost every situation. Cultivate the heart of a hustler. Hustling might be associated with selling drugs, but it's also a character trait that's shared by winners in every profession. Steve Jobs was as much of a hustler at Apple as I was on the streets. The key to building up that trait in your own personality is accepting that you're never hustling towards a certain goal. Hustling is a motor that's got to be running inside of you each and every day, and its fuel is passion. If you can keep that motor running, it will take you everywhere you want to go in life. Build a strong crew. You're only going to be as strong as the weakest person in your crew. You have to be extremely conscious of who you have around you. Betrayal is never as far away as you'd like to believe. That's why it's imperative to find a balance between disciplining the people and giving them the freedom to be themselves. If you can establish that equilibrium, you'll be in a position to get the very best out of your team. Know your value. One of the cornerstones of my sustained success is that I don't rush into deals. Even though I've become synonymous with getting paid, I never chase money. I evaluate every new venture based on its long-term potential, not on what the first check I get is going to look like. The reason I do that is I have supreme confidence in my own value and ability. I'm secure that as long as I'm betting on myself, I'm always going to win. Evolve or die. If I've been unwilling or unable to evolve as an individual, I'd be dead or in jail right now. One of the keys to my success is that at every stage of my life, I've been willing to assess any new situation I find myself in and make the necessary adjustments. While I always draw from the lessons I learned on the streets, I'll never be limited to them. Instead, I'm always looking to absorb new information from as many sources as possible. I don't care where you come from or what you look like. If you've created success, I want to learn from you. Shape perception. Everything you share with the world, your words, your energy, what you wear, tells a story. You must make sure your narrative always presents you as the person you want to be seen as, even if your reality tells a slightly different story. One of the secrets to energy to project, especially when you're struggling, but committing to that perception will make you more attractive, professionally, personally, and even romantically. Don't be afraid to compete. Some people try to portray me as a troll or a bully, but that's not accurate. My first instinct is always to build positive and mutually beneficial relationships with people. But if someone isn't interested in being friends with me, I'm more than comfortable being enemies with them. The reason is I believe competition is healthy for all parties involved. Whether it's taking on established rap shows, I experienced my greatest success when I met my rivals head-on without any hesitation. Learn from your L's. As many victories as I've racked up over the years, I've experienced many more losses. That doesn't make me an exception among successful people. It makes me the rule. I don't know an affluent rapper, mogul, executive, or entrepreneur whose losses don't far outweigh their wins. What separates those people from the pack is that instead of complaining or hiding from this, they actively seek to learn from them. Avoid the entitlement trap. Nothing was ever given to me in life. I've had to fight for everything I've earned. That's why the concept of entitlement has never seeped into my mentality. But almost everywhere I look, from the streets to the boardroom, I still see a lot of entitled people. You're never going to find lasting success until you take full responsibility for what happens in your life. No one owes you anything, just as you don't owe anyone else. Once you accept that fundamental truth and accept that you control your journey, so many doors that seem closed are going to open up in front of you. Growing up, reading was often seen as an assignment that must be endured, instead of a tool that can help improve your life. Because of that mentality, no matter how many secrets I share in this book about happiness, business, and improving your life, there are a lot of folks in the hood who still won't ever find them. They simply don't sit down and read books. They might walk past a book like this 1,000 times until it's covered in dust before they even think of cracking it open. It's not entirely their fault either. A lot of books aren't written in a language that feels accessible to everyone. Personally, I didn't get into reading until I found writers like Donald Goines and Iceberg Slim, who wrote in a voice that felt familiar to me. Their style made me comfortable, and once I had that, it gave me the confidence to start exploring authors who didn't come from the same background as me. Writers like Don Miguel Ruiz, Paulo Coelho, and one who has even become a close friend and collaborator, Robert Greene. Even if you're not from the streets, and given how diverse my audience has become, there's a good chance you're not. You've still made an important step just by listening to this book. These days, a lot of people have replaced reading with clicking. They'll skim the surface of a topic, maybe watch a short video, maybe read a Wikipedia page, and feel like they've put in work. Sorry, but a few clicks and scrolls just aren't enough. I found that you need to learn about multiple examples and read about multiple scenarios before certain principles start to sink in. After you finish this book, you might only take a few of the principles with you. Even just one, that's fine. That was the case when I read Robert's 48 Laws of Power. Actually, today what that book was about, and all I really can tell you is, as the student, never outshine the master. There were 47 other laws in that book, but that's the one that stayed lodged in my brain. And because it's never left me, I've been able to apply it so many times over the years. I've literally made millions by remembering to follow that principle. My hope is that you'll leave this book with at least one fundamental principle lodged in your brain too. Maybe it will be about fearlessness. Maybe it will be about controlling perspective, or the importance of evolving. Whatever principle it is that resonates with you, hold on to it. Carry it with you until it becomes part of your life. When you get to the top of the game, when you have all the money, then your perspective shifts, and you start to look at what really matters, how you help people. I'm not someone who's comfortable resting on their laurels. If I'm around at 70, I still want to be contributing and participating. It may require less of me, but I'll still be a part of the culture, helping push it forward. I might not be jumping around anymore, but I'll still be there trying to help. I've helped people in ways that maybe you haven't seen or heard before, but this book is one of the most effective and far-reaching ways I can do it. For every reckless tweet or wild lyric from 50 Cent, trust that there's a method to how Curtis Jackson is moving, a strategy behind each action that is battle-tested and proven to work. This is my chance to share those strategies with you so you can move with purpose and confidence in your own life. I'm excited that you're joining me on this journey. Chapter 1. Finding Fearlessness. I wouldn't give a tinker's damn for a man who isn't sometimes afraid. Fear's a spice that makes it interesting. To go ahead. Daniel Boone. A few years ago, I hired a French guy named Quarantine Vilma to run my website. When he wasn't working for me, one of Quarantine's hobbies was to take selfies in spectacular settings, standing precariously on the edge of a cliff or sitting on the roof of a high-rise with his legs dangling over the side. When he showed those pics to the guys in my office, they would shake their heads and laugh, saying only a white guy would do that. To them, it was like skydiving or trying to pet wild animals, an unnecessary risk that only someone who had never experienced real danger would take. I saw it differently. I saw an opportunity for freedom. So one day I took Quarantine up to the roof of my old offices in Times Square to take some pictures of my own. But instead of just dangling my legs over the side, I decided to up the ante. On the roof was a water tower, a wooden barrel-like structure rising several stories above us. Without any hesitation, I climbed up his rickety ladder and took a seat on the edge. I must have been 40 stories in the air. Below me, the people in the streets looked like ants at a picnic. If I slipped, it would have been a long trip down to the sidewalk. The stakes, and me, were very high, but I didn't experience any fear. Instead, I took in this spectacular view. The New York Times building towered over me to my left, and the Hudson River sparkled behind me. I felt incredibly alive. Seeing my hometown from a bird's eye view filled me with the same ambition I'd felt as a younger man. New York City was literally at my feet, the city of dreams, and I was going to keep hustling my hardest to realize every one of them. I leaned back, and Quarantine snapped a spectacular shot for IG. When I got back to my office, I posted it with this caption: I live on the edge. I'm only free because I'm not afraid. Everything I was afraid of already happened to me. A lot of people love to post. That's real, one wrote, with another adding, man, that's a powerful word. But not everyone appreciated it. About a week after posting the pic, I received a letter from my insurance company explaining that if I knowingly risked my life like that again, they would immediately cancel my policy. The insurance company shouldn't have been surprised though. If there's one trait that has defined me since an early age, it's fearlessness. A lot of people probably think I was born fearless. I might project that energy, but it's not true. I was scared of the dark as a child, just like I was definitely terrified of being killed when I was on the street, or petrified of failing when I started rapping. I've experienced anxiety and angst of all kinds. The difference is I refuse to allow myself to grow comfortable in all those fears. Comfort, I learned, is a dream killer. It saps our ambition, blinds our vision, promotes complacency. The number one thing most people are comfortable with is fear. Not that most of them would admit it. Ask someone if they're living in a constant state of fear, and they'll probably say, of course not. That's just pride talking though. Fear dominates most people's lives. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of loneliness. I don't think there's anything shameful about experiencing fear. A little bit of paranoia is actually extremely helpful. There are a lot of real dangers out there. A lot of people with bad intentions. Being aware of those possibilities makes it easier to avoid them. What you cannot do is become complacent with any of those fears. If you fear loss, you can't spend your life avoiding intimacy and love, something I've struggled with. If you fear failure, you can't stop taking risks. If you fear the unknown, you can't stop trying new experiences. It is not death a man should fear, said the Roman emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius, but he should fear never beginning to live. I can trace the roots of my own sense of fearlessness back to one specific event, the death of my mother. That's a special kind of fear, one that is hard to describe. More than getting shot 9 times, losing my mother was the most significant thing that ever happened to me. Even in middle age, I can still feel her loss. But through her death, my mother managed to give me a rare gift, the seed of fearlessness. It would take a lot of time for that trait to fully blossom in me. I would unfortunately have to experience a lot more difficult and dangerous moments until it became second nature. In this chapter, I'm going to share some of the experiences and situations that helped encourage that sense of gutsiness in me, that allowed me to accept that what lives on the other side of fear isn't danger or even death, but freedom. I want to show you that fearlessness is a strength that you can develop too, a muscle you can build, hopefully without having to experience the trauma that made mine so jacked. You don't have to lose your mother or survive getting shot 9 times to develop the belief that you can survive anything that happens to you. That the only thing that you can't overcome is never taking risks in the first place. Don't be afraid to get hit. Team sports weren't my thing as a kid. Didn't matter what we were playing, football, basketball, or baseball. If we lost, I'd always be quick to point out whose fault it was. Yo, we got blown because you can't guard your fucking man, I might tell a teammate who got burnt on defense in basketball. He kept busting your ass. We lost because of you, bro. It wasn't that I was trying to evade responsibility. If I made a bad play or couldn't guard my man, I'd be the first to admit it. It was more that I didn't like having my success ride on someone else's ability or inability to perform. It's a feeling I haven't been able to shake to this day. I always say that if I were ever going to bet on a horse at the track, then let it be me, goddammit. Because I know I'm going to run as hard as I can. I was smart enough to accept I wasn't emotionally suited for team sports. I needed a sport where if I lost, it was my fault alone. Individual sports like golf and tennis weren't sports anyone I knew played. I only lived about 20 minutes from where the U.S. Open is played in Flushing, but it might just as well have been in another state. And in my hood, you usually only find yourself running if someone was chasing you. There was, however, a police athletic league boxing gym near me, run by a local fighter named Allah Understanding. He was from the nearby Baisley projects and came up in the days when having a strong knuckle game was something people respected, aspired to, and feared. I trained with Understanding when I was around 12 years old, and I knew almost right away that boxing was the right fit for me. One day I was hanging out at the gym when a street dude named Black Just stopped by, accompanied by one of his boys. Blackie, as we called him, was one of the most respected dealers in Baisley, the top lieutenant for Supreme Team, the biggest drug crew in Queens at the time. His boy was essentially his muscle, a constant presence to make sure his rivals would have to think twice before trying him. Already their reputations were well known around the neighborhood, the kind of young guns you didn't want any problem with. The gym got quiet as we all watched Blackie and his boy walk around. Then without a word, Blackie's boy stopped in front of one of the heavy bags and started laying into it. Bam, 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 bam. As the youngest kid in the space, common sense would dictate I keep my mouth shut and just observe. But maybe because I was the youngest, I felt a little bolder and my big mouth got the better of me. As soon as the guy was finished on the bags, I called out to him. Hey man, you look good hitting that bag, I said loud enough for everyone in the gym to hear. But that bag don't hit back. Blackie whipped around. What you say, young boy? You talking to me? Nah, I quickly replied. I'm talking to him, I said, nodding towards his man. Most guys in that position would have whooped my ass, or worse, on the spot. But these guys took my shit talking in stride. Blackie had a generous spirit, free of the greed that infected a lot of his peers. Instead of taking offense, they both respected my outsized courage. Yeah, I like this kid, Blackie said, gesturing to me. We're gonna have some champions come out of here, because these little niggas crazy. That recognition alone would have made my whole day. Instead, Blackie did us one better. This gym could use some work if we're gonna get the most out of these fighters, he announced, looking around at the shabby setting. What kind of stuff y'all need? Write it all down. 2 weeks later, the gym was completely refurnished. Blackie had gotten us boxing shoes, trunks, new ropes, punching bags, and a new set of weights to replace the old rusty set that probably hadn't been updated since the 60s. From then on, Blackie took care of us. Whatever we needed, he got us. Although it was... Ever heard the expression punching above your weight? Well, in that gym, I had to punch above my weight and age from the first day. There were no other kids my age in the program, so a lot of understanding had me fight whoever was in my weight class, which usually meant opponents 4 to 5 years older than me. That might not seem like a big deal, but there's a massive difference between a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old. Those 17-year-olds were basically men, whereas I was still waiting for my balls to drop. I might have been in the same weight class, but I lacked this strength and maturity. It was intimidating as hell to step into the ring with those guys. I never gave in to that fear, mostly because law understanding refused to let me. One of the best things he and the other coaches did was refuse to coddle me. If an older boy hit me in the face while we were sparring, they did not stop to perceive how scared or how hurt I was. The lesson I learned from those ass whoopings be twofold. First off, I learned that I could survive them. Yes, getting hit in the face wasn't pleasant. It would leave you disoriented. It would hurt. It might leave your eyes watering. But those blows didn't kill me. Hell, it didn't even knock me out. Once I realized I could absorb them and keep moving forward, most of the fear I had felt evaporated. Second, and I'm forever indebted to Allah understanding for teaching me this, I learned that if I didn't like getting hit, then I needed to do something about it. Keep your fucking hands up, you yell. If I let down my guard, my opponent tagged me. If my opponent started laying into me with body shots after trapping me in the corner, Allah would holler, get back into the center of the ring. Punishment, Allah understanding taught me, wasn't something I had to accept. I could always do something about it. They knew I was outsized and often overmatched, but they refused to coddle me. You ever see a kid fall down and scrape his knee? How he reacts largely depends on the parent's reaction. If the parent runs over and worriedly asks, oh baby, are you okay? The kid is probably going to cry. But if the parent assesses the situation, figures the kid is fine, and doesn't ask if he's okay, the kid is going to just brush his knee off and get back to whatever game he was playing. That's the kind of parent Allah understanding was to me. He taught me to brush off being hit and get back to what I was doing. He wasn't being heartless. He was trying to condition me to brush off the inevitable blows life was going to rain down on me and keep me moving forward to where I was trying to go, instead of Once I learned not to be afraid of getting hit, I became a much better boxer. Instead of constantly standing on my heels worried about what my opponent was going to do to me, I brought the fight to my opponent. I learned how to do it. If I lost, it wasn't because I'd been backed into a corner and beaten down. It would be because I'd gone for what I wanted and simply come up against someone with more skill. It's been a long time since I've gotten popped in the face inside the ring, but I've tried to keep that attitude in everything I do. I refuse to be afraid to take a punch. I know the blows are going to come, and some of them are going to stagger me, but I'll be able to take them. A lot of y'all are like the kid that fell off at school and waited for his mommy to come over and say, baby, are you all right? Not me. When I fall off, I'm not waiting for a sympathetic word or someone to check in on me. I've accepted that the punches are going to come in life, and some of them are going to land, but I'm always going to survive and keep fighting for the things I want. That has to be your attitude, too. Facing fear head on. As I've said, my mother's death is what forced me to build up my immunity to fear. Learning how to get punched in the face only increased my sensitivity. For a while, it seemed like fear might be an emotion I'd never have to deal with again. It wasn't to be the case, though. Getting shot definitely reawakened that sensation in me. First and foremost, in the weeks that followed the incident, I found myself very afraid of the people who shot me. I knew that they were still out there, not very far away, and eager to finish the job they started. In addition to the emotional anxiety, the physical pain of getting shot also reacquainted me with fear. Not in the moment I got hit. The adrenaline stops you from feeling too much of that, but in the months that will follow. Once the adrenaline wears off and the doctor tells you you're going to make it, you start to acutely feel the effects of bullets ripping through muscle and pulverizing bone. I felt pain everywhere. Where lead went through my thumb or through my cheek. For months, it was like I had headaches throughout my body. A relentless and deep throbbing I didn't know you could feel in your leg or your hand. Every time I had to go to physical therapy and put weight on my leg or break through the scar tissue of my thumb, it hurt like hell. I realized I was scared of going through that process again, maybe even more so than dying. But as my rehab